Hi, everybody. So, we're going to be talking about slavery in the United States. Slavery in what will become the United States first comes to our shores in 1619, and it happens in Jamestown. Now, what happened is a ship came in through Jamestown. It was actually a slave ship that was trying to get rid of some of the slaves in order to make a profit. And when it stopped in Jamestown, the very first slaves to get off on these shores and maintain lives as slaves are the people from this ship. So the first slaves in the United States were 20 slaves from a place in Africa called Angola, and they were sold to George Yeardley, who was famous for eventually becoming the governor of Virginia when it was a colony. Now, these slaves are obviously not the last slaves. Slavery will grow to the United States. By the time the Civil War comes, we will have 5 million slaves living within the United States. But what this initial slave trade does is it begins a flow of slaves to the United States. And in return for those slaves, you get American materials. I keep saying America, I should say New World materials that are sent to Africa and Europe in exchange. This exchange of goods and people and disease and resources between Europe, Africa, and America is going to be known as the Columbian Exchange, and it's named after Christopher Columbus himself. He did not come to America as we know it, but he does begin the trade of items to and from the New World. What you're going to see is the items being taken from the New World are going to be mostly crops. So you're going to see things like pumpkins, tomatoes, all of those peanuts are going to originate in the New World and be sent to trade to Europe and Africa. Likewise, from Africa and Europe, what you're going to get are slaves, diseases, but then also tradable things like cattle, sheep, pigs, horses, peaches. You've got coffee beans, etc. So all of this is being traded back and forth. Another term for it is going to be the triangular trade. So Columbian exchange is just the idea of these items being shipped back and forth. The triangular trade is kind of the order. So if you look, there are many different triangles that could be formed between these three areas. So the triangular trade is the idea that you have a triangle being formed between these three areas. You've got raw goods, so crops being sent from the New World to Europe. Those raw goods are turned into finished products, and they are sent to Africa, where they are traded for slaves and brought over to the New World. So this constant trade between these three areas, and that is why it's called the Middle Passage. Now, if you'll look right here, it says slave/Middle Passage. When we refer to the Middle Passage, we are specifically talking about the slaves being brought over from Africa to the New World, and there are a lot. This video right here is a time-lapse video of how many slave ships that we have records of are leaving Africa and going to the New World. So this video is going to have more than just what's coming to the 13 colonies. It's also going to include South America. But what I want to do, I'm going to play this for you, but I want you to notice where most of the ships are going to and what years have the most ships. So notice it's starting in 1550s and you don't really see a lot of anything. Wait till you see, oh, did you see that right there? That's what you're going to be looking for, the dots. Each dot represents a slave ship. Notice the amount of ships coming from right over here. Now, we have officially gone past the dates of time that we are studying because we're now in the 1700s, but I still think it's really important to just see the mass quantity. Think each of these little dots that you're seeing fly across the ocean is carrying anywhere from 50 to 200 people to be sold. Now, as to the Middle Passage, remember these are slave ships. They are trying to make a profit. So what they're going to do is they are trying to cram as many people in these ships as they possibly can because they're trying to make money. What you're seeing in these two images is a diagram of how they would lay people down. So this is a journey that is taking weeks to months for them to cross. And yet most of these people for the bulk of the journey are being forced to lie down almost in like really, really skinny wooden bunks, except for when they are allowed to have food breaks. So they would be kind of released in shifts to be given food. And the food is not going to be very good. It is the bare minimum in calories to keep them alive. And then they sometimes, if they were lucky, were given breaks to kind of move around and move their arms because they're also chained. And if you're chained and lying down for a really long time, your muscles can kind of deteriorate. It's called atrophying. And so they would sometimes let them move around, but quite frankly, they were staying like this for the bulk of the time because the people working the ships were afraid that the slaves would revolt. So this passage of slaves leaving Africa and coming over to the New World is known as the Middle Passage. Lots of people die. It is very brutal. You have about a 10% mortality rate for people who are coming over on the ship. And when somebody died on the ship, they would often just toss the body into the sea. You've got young children, women, adults. So thinking about how difficult this would have been and how awful it would be to survive this journey to then enter into slavery. Now, we are going to stop here. Go ahead and answer the questions. Thank you.